I've run into the rather remarkable claim lately that Israel doesn't have any racial strife, or at least not racial strife in the way we perceive it between black and white people in, say, Britain or America. Personally, I would respond to that by saying the history of black and white interactions in both countries has similarities and differences. But the idea that there is no racial strife in Israel is, of course, inherently laughable because all anyone has to do is turn on the goggle box, the idiot box, the lantern in the corner to see that's the case. But there's also another group of people besides the fellow Semites, the Palestinians, which isn't often touched upon in the Western news, basically because it probably wouldn't be of such interest. But here's a name that most people won't be aware of: Solomon Tekah. Dozens wounded and arrested as Ethiopian Israelis protest police killing. This was it's 5.5 years ago now. Now, let me make sure we've got the sound on. And you can see how vicious these protests got on this short clip if I go back to the beginning and turn the sound back up. Absolutely no ethnic strife going on there, absolutely no bad feeling. But we'll go into who Solomon Tekah is afterwards. It's just to illustrate that the claim is absolutely misleading and is basically aimed at people who have not kept any eye on Israeli history, who know very little about it. To them, it's a funny country far away, and the only thing they ever see is the Palestinian situation. Looks like everyone's having a great time there, doesn't it? Wounded police officers, looks like an army officer there. A lovely little riot in full swing there. Something like, I don't know, Belfast back in the day, or Tottenham back in the 80s. Yet there seems to be a kind of message being fronted by certain influencers and historians and other individuals, or people posing as historians, I should say, that Israel is a wonderland where there is no racial strife of this type. Of course, there are black people in all sorts of walks of life in Israel: black soldiers, black teachers, black scientists, but that doesn't mean there isn't any racial strife. Just as you could say the same about Britain and say that there are black doctors, black teachers, black nurses, but it wouldn't mean there was no racial or ethnic strife here, or no problems with deeply ingrained attitudes on all sides, which are unpleasant.
נשק הורדת, נכון? הוריד נשק סגור.
כולנו מתאבלים על מותו הטרגי של הנער סולומון.
And there's Benjamin Netanyahu telling us we all mourn the death of Solomon Tekah. And we'll find out who Solomon is in a few minutes.
אנחנו מחבקים את המשפחה, אנחנו מחבקים את העדה האתיופית. היא יקרה לי, היא יקרה לנו. אלה לא מילים בעלמא. אני גם יודע שיש בעיות שעוד צריך לפתור. עמלנו קשה ואני צריך לעמול לפתור אותו. אבל אני מבקש מכם דבר אחד: תפסיקו את חסימות הצירים. אנחנו מדינת חוק, לא נסבול את חסימות הצירים. מבקש מכם לפתור את הבעיות יחד.
Right, well, that's enough of Benjamin. But here's some of the background to the wonders of sort of Solomon Tekah. Police officer in slaying of Ethiopian Israeli youth, acquitted of negligent manslaughter. Court finds police officer's life was endangered by Solomon Tekah, that the warning shot he fired was a reasonable action, and he acted in self-defense. The off-duty police officer accused of the reckless manslaughter of Suleiman Tekah, an incident which led to widespread riots by elements of the Ethiopian Israeli community, was found not guilty by the High Magistrates Court on Tuesday. Does this suggest to you a background in which there are no ethnic tensions between various segments of Jewish society, and that Beta Israelism does not have any tensions with the wider Israeli community or wider Jewish community? It doesn't to me. I've got some other links up here. The Jerusalem Post, where it talks about a study into the number of racist incidents which occurred in Israel in 2022, and talks about them in some depth. And it talks about 17% of those racist actions against Ethiopian Israelis, and 18% of racist incidents reported by Israel came from the former USSR, 5 from Mizrahi Israelis, 5 from Haredim, and another 15 from miscellaneous categories. So it's not quite as simplistic a picture as some would like it to be. And I've got 2 YouTube videos people could watch on their own time if they want, talking about why do Ethiopians face racism in Israel, and talking about how Israeli Jews of Ethiopian origin step up anti-racism protests. So any claims to the audience here in the UK that there isn't any such, shall we say, involved situations where communities are at loggerheads over perceived access to education, health, housing, whatever, ignore it. It's a far more complicated situation on the ground, and just as it is anywhere. And there seems to be an attempt, I've noticed, to try and drift away from the topic of Gaza by presenting Israel as a rosy, sunny society where there are none of the problems we face with those situations here in either Western Europe or the US. The reality, of course, is very, very different.